You know, in a crisis, you'd think all the most important clues would be found at a crime scene, right? But sometimes they're hidden in plain sight, tucked away inside the words people choose to use. Today, we're going to decode a desperate public plea, a message where every single word carries an almost unimaginable weight.
Okay, so get this. Imagine hearing this line from a family who is desperate, just desperate to get their loved one back. On the surface, it sounds like a plea, but to a trained investigator, a line like this can set off some serious alarm bells. What on earth could that really mean?
So where did this message even come from? Well, it was part of a public video put out there for the world to see by the family of Nancy Guthrie, who had been kidnapped. This was their direct message to her captors, and it immediately got the attention of law enforcement analysts everywhere. Okay, so here's the full text of the message. It seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? We understand, return our mother, we will pay. But for an expert analyst, a former FBI agent named Paul Mauro, he listened to this and heard something totally different, a potential hidden message that suggested something tragic had happened.
So, how does an analyst even begin to break something like this down? Well, you look at it forensically. You treat every single word like it's a piece of evidence. So let's walk through the specific phrases that raised these huge red flags for Mauro.
Let's start with the first big clue, that word, celebrate. Now that's a word we all associate with joy, right? With happy reunions. But in the middle of a kidnapping negotiation, it just feels off, doesn't it?
And that's exactly the question Paul Mauro asked. Celebrate what? Celebrate her return? I mean, maybe, but the phrasing is just so unusual. It's not, we can't wait to have her home, or we're ready to welcome her back. It's celebrate with her.
And this is where Mauro's theory really starts to take shape. He suggests that celebrate might actually be a painful euphemism. I mean, think about how we use that word in another context, celebrating someone's life. It's what you do after they're gone. And that choice of that specific word is the first major sign that this might not be a negotiation for a living person anymore.
Now we get to the line that Mauro pointed to as the single most troubling part of the entire message. It's just such a final-sounding statement.
Think about it. If you were expecting your mother to come back, safe and sound, you might say something like, "We can't wait to see her," or "This will bring our family so much joy." But peace? As Mauro points out, peace is what you look for when you need closure from a tragedy.
And the suspicion just keeps building with the next line. This is very valuable to us. Now, on the surface, that seems obvious. You're thinking, well, of course, their mother is valuable. But this is where Mauro's logic gets really sharp. You don't need to say your living mother is valuable. That's just a given. You declare something as valuable when you're trying to convince somebody else of its worth, when its value might actually be in question. And that, he argues, points toward a truly grim possibility, that they are no longer negotiating for a person, but for the return of her body.
Okay, so the analysis doesn't just stop with the words they used. What's just as important, maybe even more important, is what they didn't say. The silence here, the absence of certain phrases, it just speaks volumes.
And this really gets to the heart of it. A typical, hopeful negotiation has all this logistical language. You'd expect to hear things like, "We are ready to move forward," or "We're waiting for your instructions." Those are words that signal an active exchange is happening. But here, there's none of that. It's just crickets.
And you have to ask, why a public video in the first place? If the family and the kidnappers had a good private way to talk, there would be zero need to post a video on social media. The very public nature of this plea is a huge sign that their communication is probably broken down.
So when you start to put all of these pieces together, the strange word choices, the things they're not saying, the fact that it's a public video, a picture starts to form. And it's a deeply disturbing one.
So this is the investigative logic, step by step. You start with the unsettling euphemisms, words like celebrate and peace. You add that bizarre declaration of value. You notice the complete lack of any forward-moving negotiation language. And you factor in the desperation of going public. You see how each step just reinforces the last?
And it all leads to the stark conclusion from the analyst. Based purely on the language, the message reads less like a ransom negotiation and more like a plea for closure after a tragedy. It suggests the family got new information, maybe that something went wrong, that an accident occurred, and their goal, tragically, has had to shift.
You know, this kind of deep linguistic analysis isn't just some academic exercise. It is a fundamental tool for law enforcement, and it leads to a really critical realization. This message probably wasn't just a spontaneous plea from a grieving family.
Get this. Paul Mauro was 100% certain that law enforcement was not only advising the family, but that they were physically present, helping to stage and film this message. And how did he know? He pointed to reports that the FBI was on scene with professional equipment, including, and this is the kicker, a ring light, the kind you'd use for social media videos. This was absolutely a carefully managed communication strategy.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Every verb, every noun, every single omission is chosen for a reason. In the hands of investigators, this language becomes a kind of forensic evidence, offering a window into a hidden reality that you can't see, but you can definitely hear, if you're just listening closely enough. And it all leaves you with this one last, chilling thought to chew on. When people are under immense pressure, when they're forced to speak in a kind of code, maybe the truest message of all isn't found in the words they say, but in the ones they so carefully leave out.